Hi, I'm Katie, and I'm going to attempt to recreate a very popular activity from an advanced ESL class that I previously taught in Marshalltown, Iowa. My hope is that it will be a useful tool to people who may be stuck at home right now, but want to continue to practice and enhance their English speaking, reading, writing, and listening skills. So today's verb of the day is follow. Let's take a look at some of the definitions. Now, as a disclaimer, these are not all the potential definitions of the word follow, but they are some of the more common uses for this particular verb. The first definition is to go or come after, to move behind in the same direction. So one way you might have heard the word follow used is when you enter a new building, a new place, and someone wants you to walk to a particular room and they say, follow me. A second definition is to obey. So with this, I think about following rules, following the law. Those are common ways that I hear the verb follow used with that meaning. The third definition is to move forward or along. You might hear this when someone is giving you directions. They tell you to follow a particular road until you get to a certain landmark and then turn right. The fourth meaning is to watch the development of or keep up with. So here we would think about following the news. The fifth definition is really to understand. So sometimes this meaning will be used with questions and asking someone, are you following me? And again, it has the meaning there of like, are you understanding what I'm saying? And so that could be with instructions. It could be somebody who's reciting a story and just making sure they want that you're able to understand what's being said. Follow is a regular verb, and to make the progressive form, we're just going to add ing, and the past tense and participle forms, all we have to do is add ed. That ed is going to make a duh sound, and some students might be looking at this and going, hey, wait a minute, Katie, L and W are consonants, and you've told me when a word ends, consonant, vowel, consonant, I need to double the consonant. Well, here, the W is not making a consonant sound. The O and the W together are making a vowel sound. So that's why we're not adding a second W at the end of that word before we add ed or ing. Okay? Let's take a look at some phrasal verbs with follow. The first phrasal verb that I have is follow along. And the meaning here is to move together. That's what unison also means. This is a phrasal verb I know I have used many times when teaching. I might be reading something and I want students to also be reading the words silently to themselves. So I'll ask students to follow along. And that's the example sentence there. The students followed along as the teacher read the story. A second phrasal verb is to follow someone out. And it means that someone or something is moving after another person when that person is leaving. So let's take a look at that in an example sentence. Don't leave the door open when you go. The dog will follow you out. The third phrasal verb I have, follow through, actually has two meanings. The first meaning is to complete. Used in an example sentence, they always follow instructions through to the last detail. Here, it would imply that they, the subject, are completing the particular task and all of the parts of it. In the second meaning of follow through, it really means that you're continuing an effort. She will follow through on her promise. The last phrasal verb I have is follow up. and it means to act on something further. So here, the nurse will follow up with a call in 2 days. You might hear something like this after you've had a doctor's appointment, and maybe some medication has been prescribed, and what's being implied here is they're going to check in to make sure that medicine is working, that you're healing, that you're getting better in this particular way. So follow up gets used quite a lot in many work settings. Okay? Let's look at follow in a few different verb tenses as well. So I have some sample sentences just in 3 verb tenses. For students who used to be in my class, you might recognize, gee, we do 4 or 5, but to keep these videos from being super long and perhaps from the text being tough to read, I thought I would just keep it to 3 to start. But we'll look at affirmative statements, negative statements, and yes or no questions in each of these 3 verb tenses. Let's start with the simple present. Here I have, as an example sentence, I follow the news regularly. I could switch the subject there to you, we, or they, and the verb would stay the same. But if my verb is he, she, or it in the simple present, then I need to add an S to the end of the verb. So there you'll see the example, he follows the news regularly. If I want to make a negative statement, I'm going to use do not for subjects they, we, you, and I. And then I'll use does not with the subjects she, he, and it. So you can see in my example sentences there, they don't follow directions. She doesn't follow directions. Notice that using either don't or doesn't, there is no S on the verb in the negative. Finally, if we want to make a yes or no question, all we're going to do is switch the order of that helping verb that we were using in the negative format and switch the order of the subject and the helping verb. So our first question here, do you follow the news? Does he follow the news? That's all we have to do to make a simple present yes or no question. Let's look at present progressive. This particular verb tense would be used if we're talking about something that is in progress or that is happening right now. And to make the present progressive, we want to use be and ing with the verb. So I have a few examples in the affirmative. I'm following the suspect. They are following the suspect. She is following the suspect. These sentences might be describing a detective, a police officer who is following the movements, following in the steps of someone they believe to have committed a crime. In the negative present progressive, what we want to do is insert not between the be verb and the ing. So here, my examples are, you aren't following the instructions. He isn't following the instructions. It's perfectly okay if you say are not following or is not following, but it's really common to hear the contractions in spoken English. If we want to make a question in present progressive, what we're going to do, again, is switch the order of the helping verb, which is be in this case, and the subject. Are they following his explanation? Is she following his explanation? Finally, let's look at the simple future. And my old students will know that there are several ways you can talk about the future. The most common ways, though, that we would practice it were with will and the base verb, and then be going to and the base verb. Will tends to be used with talking about sort of future facts or making predictions. Be going to will also be used for future facts, predictions, and also plans. So let's look at a few sentences here. I think she will follow the orders. In this particular sentence, I'm making a prediction. I think she's going to follow the orders. Again, those two sentences have about the same meaning. Let's look at negative now. Again, sort of similar to what we did in the present progressive, we're going to insert not between our helping verb and the base verb. So will not in contraction form is won't. Our dog won't follow a stranger. In the be going to form, our dog isn't going to follow a stranger. Finally, let's look at some questions. Will he follow the doctor's recommendations? And are they going to follow the doctor's recommendations? Again, all we're doing is sort of switching the order of our subject and our helping verbs. Okay. Finally, one thing I always enjoyed talking about were some related words to our verb of the day. So I'm going to start off here with two words that I think have really become more used in just the last few years with the increase in social media. And so you're more likely to hear these words in reference to things connected to social media. The first related word is also a verb. It's unfollow. And the prefix un means not. So here, unfollow would mean to stop following, not to follow. So used in an example, after their fight, they unfollowed each other on social media. Another connected word would be followers. Now, this doesn't have to be used with social media. We could talk about fans of a celebrity as being a follower. But again, you're more likely to hear this used today when it's connected to social media. And that's my example sentence here. The politician has 10 million followers on Twitter. The last two words are adjectives. And these words connect to whether the directions or instructions maybe that someone has provided are clear and easy to follow, or if they are perhaps confusing and very difficult to follow. So our first adjective is followable, and our second adjective there is unfollowable. And here you'll see in the example, I'm talking about some plans. So again, connected to directions or instructions. Okay. Well, I want to thank everybody for watching this first attempt at a YouTube video. I especially want to thank one of my former students, Ten, who has encouraged me very often to start a YouTube channel. I'm going to do my best to make some more videos so that you can continue studying safely at home and developing your reading, writing, speaking, and listening skills. Happy studying!